IDX 30 Index. Good afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Claranta Wijaya, and this is Market Headlines. And yes, viewers, we're going to start market headlines by looking at the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So JCI opened at level of 5,088.14, and then approaching the closing time of the first session, the index is on the level of 5,021.13. And then the index was showing weakening trend by the second session's closing time. The index was closed at the level of 5,006.22. In short, JCI was weakening at 2.78%. And next, we are going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got music industry as the leader of the weakening trend, going down 4.54%. Constructions going down 3.69%. Infrastructure going down 3.64%. And basic industry going down 3.01%. And next, the top gainers in today's trading. Here's the list of the stock for you. We got ERA with the value that went up 1.36%. We got FIRE with the value that went up significantly by 12.1%. And we got Pura with the value that went up 3.08%. And TBLA with the value that went up 1.37%. And meantime, for the top losers of today's trading, we got BBRI with a value that went down 5.38%. We got Telkom with a value that went down 4.26%. And then we got BMRI with a value that went down 5.17%. And BBNI with a value that went down 3.48%. And next, we are going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So rupiah opened at the level of 14,173. Rupiah was also showing strengthening trends towards US dollar. I was closed at the level of 14,587. And in summary, rupiah was strengthening at 0.67%. Indonesia Stock Exchange has reshuffled constituents in IDX 30 Index. Currently, there are 3 stocks that got swapped. The IDX 30 Index measures the performance of 30 stocks with the largest market capitalizations on the IDX, the highest transactions volume selected from the constituents of LQ45 Index. Starting Monday, Indonesian Stock Exchange has reshuffled constituents in IDX 30 Index. 3 stocks that had entered into IDX 30 Index are BTP and Syariah, XL Axiata, and Sarana Menara Nusantara. While there are 3 stocks as well that got rid from IDX 30 Index, among of them are Barita Pacific, Waskita Karya, and PTPP. The decisions has been made and will be applied from August 2020 to January 2021. Not only IDX 30 Index, but Indonesia Stock Exchange also has reshuffled constituents in other index such as LQ45 and IDX 80 Index. From all sources for IDX Channel. Pharmaceutical company Kalbe Pharma posted positive performance during first half of 2020. With the concerns rising about medicine availability during COVID-19 pandemic, the company successfully booked increasing earnings and net profit. Kalbe Pharma plays among health and pharmaceutical companies fighting the coronavirus pandemic. Economically, this May company comes up with a good financial performance. During the first 6 months of 2020, Kalbe Pharma posted net sales of up to 11.6 trillion rupiah. The number increased 3.76% compared to the first semester of last year, which reached 11.18 trillion rupiah. On the yearly basis, net profit increased 10.3%, from previously 1.26 trillion rupiah to be 1.39 trillion rupiah. The growth was mainly due to increased efficiency in operating costs, foreign exchange gains, and lower tax rates. From all sources for IDX Channel. Stay tuned on market headlines because we will be right back after this quick break.
Market hari ini sudah dibuka dan menghijau begitu. Anda ada di zona positif, akankah ini terus berlanjut?
Saya masih mencermati untuk saham-saham ini ya, tambangan, saham alam putra nih ya. Asli kan kemarin belum naik, ini potensi naik.
Industri pertambangan, saya melihat bahwa ya ini industri yang kalau dibilang unik ya. Resiko dan hasil itu tidak selalu sejalan. Kita sulit untuk mendapatkan ada penambang-penambang muda yang baru dan yang mau datang ke hutan untuk ketok batu lah, istilahnya ketok batu untuk mencari tahu apakah ada tambang di sana. Efisiensi itu sesuatu yang harus selalu diperhatikan ya. Semua pengeluaran itu harus reasonable.
Virus corona diprediksi menekan pertumbuhan ekonomi berbagai negara dan membuat baja di pasar global alami oversupply. Krakatau Steel menyikapi ini seperti apa, Pak Silmi?
Cara mengantisipasinya, memberikan competitiveness pada industri baja nasional sehingga bisa berkompetisi dengan import. Terus kemudian juga importnya juga kita mesti selektif. Jangan import yang hal-hal yang sudah bisa dibuat di Indonesia.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. 2021 state budget deficit, from previously predicted to be around 4.2% of GDP, government has revised it to be 5.2% of the GDP. To keep the effectivity of deficit, government is about to redesign state budget for the next year. The government and the House of Representatives has agreed in principle on 2021 state budget assumptions with a deficit of 5.2% of gross domestic product. These aim to bolster the economy from the coronavirus-induced recession. To keep it remain effective, government is about to redesign state budget for next year. Suharto Monoarfa, as the Minister of National Development Planning Agency, stated that the increase in state budget deficit should have significant impact to the economic recovery. Therefore, it needs to be calculated firmly so that the state budget deficit can be used in maximum.
Jadi kalau ada pertambahan setiap 1% dari defisit ini, berapa kira-kira pertumbuhan ekonomi yang kita bisa ampuh dan menciptakan lapangan kerja sejumlah berapa orang. Itu yang harus kita desain ulang dalam beberapa hari ke depan ini. Jadi memang kami mohon untuk sabar.
Focus of state budget redesignings will stay in touch for developing priority sectors, including industrial, tourism, social and health, and food sectors. All of these sectors are expected to create more jobs fields. From Jakarta, Rajo Pamo for IDX Channel. So it has been finalized. The government has decided to widen the 2021 state budget deficit. The deficit increase will impact on the government's rising expenditure reserves, which according to Finance Minister, Indonesia has 179 trillion in expenditure reserve. As it contains huge amounts of financial risk, the new setup of budget deficit has raised concerns from many economists. And therefore, right now in the studio, live by Zoom, we're going to have a deeper discussions about this with Fahrul Fulfian as the Chief Economist of Trimaga. Hello, sir. Thank you for time with us. How are you? Hello, sir.
I'm fine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for your time with us. So, sir, there is an interesting fact in here that the government has decided to widen up 2021 state budget deficit to 5.2% of Indonesia's gross domestic product from the initial plans of 4.3%. So what's your perspective on this? Is this necessary enough for you?
I think this is precautionary action doing by the government. As there is a risk that in the 2021, the economic recovery could be slower than expected. If that's so, the economic recovery is slower than expected, so the wider budget deficit is necessary for this situation.
Oh, yes, sir. So, then you say that this is necessary, but with the number of 5.2%, do you think that is realistic enough for you?
For me, it is realistic enough, but there is a big underlying assumption that makes that the state budget deficit at 5.2% to be reliable for our economy. It is about the pace of the economic recovery. If the economic recovery next year is the recovery comes at a fast pace, the tax revenue likely to grow fast also next year. If that's the case, the 5.2% of the fiscal deficit wouldn't be reachable, since our government revenue is likely to grow fast also.
All right, so you mentioned about it is reachable, but do you think that this is still in the safe zone?
I think it is still in the safe zone. Because based on our law, the maximum of government debt to GDP could not exceed 60%. At the current situation, assuming a 6.3% government state budget deficit to be reached by the end of this year, it should be between 38 to 40%. So it is still below the threshold.
All right, sir. So when we mentioned about President Jokowi's statements before, President Jokowi stated that this state budget deficit will aim to support the economic recovery and also sectoral transformations. Between two entities, between the sectoral transformations and also economic recovery, which one do you think deserves more spotlight?
I think what we need to more spotlight is about the sectoral transformation. As we know that the current disruption due to the COVID-19 virus is currently creating a sudden shift in the behavior, both in the consumers and the producers. And we currently employ really high-tech equipment in our job. So sectoral transformation is more important. So the focus will be in how Indonesia can balance the efficiency and effectiveness and economic growth through the sectoral transformation.
All right, sir. So when we talk about sectoral transformations, which one of the sector that you think deserves more spotlight from the government?
The sector that deserves a spotlight from the government is the service sector. Because currently we see that the sector that are suffer more during the COVID-19 situation is the service sector, because people is not going anywhere and only consume what is necessary for their life. They do not consume something luxury, they do not consume the tertiary and secondary consumption.
All right, so we talk much about 2021 state budget deficit, but when we talk about 2020 deficit, government just set up 6.3% of the state budget deficit. But in the other hand, sir, we know that international institutions just stated that Indonesia might have a larger deficit. So do you think that this 6.3%, this number can be widened up?
I think that is possible. But the good thing is this year, as the global economy is slumping, the demand for the liquidity worldwide, not only in Indonesia, is dropping also. So currently we have very ample liquidity in the market, so the government could finance its widening deficit. I still be comfortable with the state budget deficit to reach 7.5%. That should be reasonable number for me.
All right, sir. So when we talk about state budget deficit, also it has a strong correlations with, recessions. These recessions this year, do you think that Indonesia will have this?
Pardon me.
Do you think that Indonesia? Do you think that Indonesia will have recessions in the meantime?
We are not prepared for that, but we need to be ready with that situation. Because at the current situation, as so many companies already laying off already reduced the number of the employees, so it is likely that to gain back the consumption is likely to take more time. We need to be reading that the third quarter of the year, the economic growth is still in negative side. We need to be ready with that.
All right, sir. And when we talk about funding, this is very interesting. Since to plug the deficit number, government try several methods. One of them is issuing global bonds and government bonds and whatever it is, issuing the bonds. And according to data, government expects to raise more than 1.5 quadrillion rupiah for bonds. What's your perspective about this?
My perspective this year is there is ample liquidity in the market, both in the local and the global market. In the local market, if you look at the June data, the loan growth in the banking system is only 1%, with the spread between the deposit and the loan in the banking system is already exceeding 600 billion. That's from the local. It means that there is a plenty of idle money in our banking system. And from the global perspective, the Fed already stated that they maintain the interest rate close to zero.
All right.
So, with the current situation and the current circumstances, I do think that 1.5 quadrillion of bonds could be financed by our government. That should be okay.
All right, sir.
That should be okay. What we need to focus is how to gain the confidence from the investors to put the money to Indonesia. Since this year, there is so many countries that could be financed by the international money. If we could convince the investors next year, we will have a better GDP growth. I think 1.5 quadrillion wouldn't be a problem.
It is indeed a quite interesting point of view, sir. And yes, sir, by widening state budget deficit, we hope government can use the fund as efficient as possible, sir, and soon can devise appropriate policy responses as well. And sir, thank you for your time with us, sir. Good evening. And yes, viewers, stay tuned to market headlines because we will be right back after this quick break.
dampak pandemi COVID-19 tidak hanya dirasakan oleh sektor swasta.
Jadi dalam kondisi normal, kami tiap hari untuk angkutan penumpang itu bisa mendapatkan sekitar 23 miliar. Sekarang ini hanya sekitar 300-an juta.
Eksekutif Chairman MNC Group Heri Tanusudibyo mengatakan sektor ekonomi di bawah perdagangan yang labor intensif.
Selain itu, BKPM mengklaim terdapat 119 investor lainnya yang berpotensi merelokasi industrinya dari negara lain ke Indonesia.
Kepada seluruh pemirsa untuk menyaksikan terus IDX Channel saluran referensi untuk bisnis dan berinvestasi di Indonesia.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. The Ministry of Industry is preparing a number of incentives to help manufacturing industry players survive amid COVID-19 pandemic. These incentives include the eliminations of minimum purchases of electricity and gas for industry.
The government, through the Ministry of Industry, asserted that in addition to providing incentives for manufacturers by eliminating the minimum purchase of electricity and gas, the government will also provide special capital loans with a ceiling ranging from 10 billion to 1 trillion rupiah. Minister of Industry Agus Gumiwang Kartasasmita said that the incentives was given so that the manufacturing industry players could survive amid the COVID-19 pandemic. He ensured if there are still manufacturing industry players who have not felt the incentive, should immediately report.
Berapa stimulus yang sudah kami sepakati yang sebentar lagi akan terbit peraturannya, yaitu berkaitan dengan jam nyala minimal ya untuk pembelian listrik bagi perusahaan-perusahaan itu yang tadinya ada minimal beli listrik 40 jam itu kita hapuskan. Begitu juga dengan minimal pembelian gas, ya, itu juga kita hapuskan.
The Minister of Industry added that for the granting of special capital loans, the government would later synergize with SOE banks and the mechanism would be discussed together. From Jakarta, Gilang Praditya for IDX Channel.
In the midst of COVID-19, Indonesia's manufacturing index continued to rise. It can be seen on Indonesia's manufacturing index, or PMI, that inclined to 46.9 on July 2020.
In the midst of COVID-19, Indonesian manufacturing continued to rise. It can be seen on Indonesian Manufacturing Index, or PMI, that inclined to 46.9 on July 2020. Indonesian PMI in July inclined by 7.8 points from June, which recorded at 39.1, or still below expansive level under 50. In the official statement, IHS Markit mentioned that Indonesian manufacturing has been affected by COVID-19 pandemic, so that the companies are still unwilling to invest in adding new capacity, and in the same time, jobs will decrease and low purchasing activity. Meantime, PMI's headline in July 2020 showed the highest level since last February. The level also showed continuous decline in output. IHS stated that a lower production volume is often related to the bad impacts of COVID-19 pandemic in demand side, while growing output number is expected to be the trigger for manufacturer to reopen its activity. From all sources, IDX Channel.
On the other hand, Indonesia's Central Statistics Agency, or BPS, reported that deflations in July 2020 hit 0.1% month-on-month. As a result, by July 2020, annual inflation is recorded at 1.45% year-on-year. The agency stated that from 90 cities, 61 cities experienced deflations and 29 cities experienced inflations. Head of BPS Suharyanto revealed that the deflations is still far below inflations in July 2019 of 0.31%. Due to the deflations number, head of Bank Mandiri's economist Andrew Asmoro estimates that inflations in the end of 2020 will be around 2.69%. The estimations is far lower than the inflation's realizations in 2019 at 2.59%. And here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic business and capital market channel. I'm Clara Antawijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.